Hello, everyone. This is Trey Parker,
And this is Matt Stone.
and welcome to the commentary for Season 21 of South Park. If you were looking for the commentary for Season 20, you've come to the wrong place. We are in the future right now, and we are doing Season 21.
We're going to comment on what we're going to do next year.
Yeah.
On what we're going to feel about what we're going to do next year after
Because
we've done
Season
it.
20 was kind of a nightmare. It was probably the hardest season we've ever tried to do, and so we'd really rather not talk about it. But
So we're going to talk about the future
we're
season.
going to talk about what we're going to do next time. But no, really.
Season 21 was great. It was easy. I felt really confident
Season
the whole
21 was
time. I slept a
amazing.
lot.
We had a great time. Season 20, however, we were coming off of Season 19, which a lot of people liked the fact that it was, we like to call it like serialized light, in that it was sort of serialized and we kept some threads going, but we never really mapped anything out. And we kind of, we enjoyed that season a lot, and other people did, and we thought, well, I wonder what would happen if we really did think it through to begin with. And we learned never to think things through ever again. Thinking things through makes things a lot harder on yourself. But what happened is we basically had this idea that we'd been kicking around with Vernon Chapman and Bill Hader, who we always work with on the show. And we'd always had this side project, kind of like, Book of Mormon was a side project for many years. We kind of had this side project that we thought, we didn't know if it was going to be a movie or a music, whatever it would become, we didn't know. But we would get together a lot and talk about this idea of a troll, a guy who was a horrible internet troll at night, but during the day was like a totally nice family man who was hiding his identity as an internet troll. And that, we came up with all this stuff about how the Danish, being troll hunters, somehow there was a troll hunter that got involved in finding this internet troll. And it was just something that we actually spent a lot of meetings on, both in LA and New York, kind of like talking through what that idea would be, and involving the Danish, involving this troll hunter, involving these other trolls that he gets involved with and everything. And we kind of got to the beginning of Season 20 of South Park, and we said, well, what if we really think this season through a little bit and use this thread that we kind of have an idea for the beginning, middle, end of, and thread it through an entire season? And
and it felt like, as we were talking about it, it felt like a subject that was changing before our eyes. We'd talked about it for a couple of years, doing something about a troll. And the main kind of part of the script, the main sort of axis of the script is sort of like anonymity versus privacy, and that debate that basically gives in the show Gerald he's so concerned of retaining his privacy and anonymity, but that also gives him his power, which is to be just a dick all the time to people, right? Yeah. And so that was the main kind of axis of the script, and we felt like the world was being a troll was starting to change before our eyes, so we decided to go for it and put it in the season. And it was funny because through the season, the very definition and the very kind of confines of what a troll is sort of changed in popular culture, and it felt like that this was the year, and this is not a super original thought, but that this is the year that the trolls got out of the comment section and into the real world, and it did feel that way. And so there was part of this script that all of a sudden we had to kind of this idea that we had to kind of follow through. And it's funny because it really is a subject that's like, so we thought it would be I don't know, you know what I mean? We didn't think it would change so fast underneath us.
Well, because part of the thing was that part of this original thing we had with this troll idea was that there was this guy who was pretty stoked on himself for being a provocateur, and really thought himself as kind of an artist, and said, what I do at night is I go out and I provoke people, and I say harsh things, and I get people to think by being really provocative, and we started. Obviously, at the same time, there was someone who was running for office by being a provocateur, and we were kind of stuck with the Mr. Garrison thing, because the season before in 19 we had done this whole thing making Garrison Trump, thinking, oh, that's our Trump show and we won't ever have to do it again. And we started this season going, oh, fuck, Garrison can't just come back and be teacher, because now he really is running, he really is in the final thing. And so, but then we really started realizing that the parallel between this troll story we had of this guy who's gaining all this momentum in this fan base by being a provocateur, while this other guy was doing it, and it just seemed like it could be a really interesting, tale of two people.
Yeah, and then the other thing it definitely was another big idea we came in with is the fact that guy was running against a woman, and that also lined up with trolls being sort of internet trolls being sort of mostly the domain of men being dicks, being dicks to women, although that's not exclusively that's a very gendered dynamic. And you have the presidential election being gender dynamic, and that's really went into the season really thinking it would be a big boys versus girls and kind of play out the little boys and little girls at our school who are now growing up in this world and almost learning that in a weird way, kind of on both sides of the political aisle, that men and women are at odds with each other. You know what I mean? And they're kind of learning that and having to work that out on a little kid level, which is where like Wieners Out came, that show where it finally felt like we'd earned our way to where the boys had started this little boys resistance, because that's what they learned from listening to the men. And that definitely, and then that came, part of the thing that Cartman always says, and part of that joke came from this New York Times review of the Ghostbusters movie, because in that whole man versus woman thing, even though it's the smallest issue in the world, it kind of dovetailed with what we always like to talk about as movies. And so we had this J.J. Abrams joke, and then the New York Times review of the new Ghostbusters movie, which is the girls' version of the remake, was like,
the headline
girls
was
rule, women are funny, girls rule, get over it.
Yeah.
And it was like the whole, like we could just see the whole tear in the fabric between men and women was held in that headline, where you have, here's a bunch of super talented people, men and women, and here's this great franchise. And 2016 is about taking that together, putting it together in a shitty way, and then if you say that's a shitty movie, you get called a sexist. And it's like, there we go. That's where we're at. We're making shitty fucking movies, and now you're a sexist for being.
If you dare say it's a shitty movie, then you're a sexist.
So just like you're in this unwinnable situation, and it just is kind of contributed with the same, the really big kind of overall arc that we came in with after putting all this together was kind of a theory of American decadence and that America's lost, and this is before the election. This was a really big, hard thing for us to get our heads around, because that's not what we have thought for 20 years. And that's a real negative, pessimistic attitude, which felt very kind of like uncomfortable, because this is not Trey or I. We just don't like starting things that way, and it feels really grumpy and cranky and maybe not funny. But it was true, you know what I mean? And it felt that way. So I said, well, we just said, let's, follow that. We can still have fun and stuff. But that idea that America's lost its way, and the way you can, in a deep way, America's lost its way. And you can really see how America's lost its way in its response to the new Star Wars movies and in its response to the new Ghostbusters movie. Yeah. Which is really stupid, but it made sense to us that somehow J.J. Abrams and this sort of laziness is also responsible for Trump, same laziness of thought. which is like so fun. It's such a small little mountain to try to climb up and plant a flag on. That's what we loved about it. It's just like, that's our point, damn it. Yeah.
But it really was. We were supposed to, there was supposed to be really more about the boys and the girls and their inner school struggle. We were mapping all that out. And then the Trump thing just kept going. And it was sort of like this microcosm of how a lot of people felt, where it's like, okay, can this just go away now so we can get back to our fucking story? But Trump just kept taking over everything, and we had to sort of like move with it. We were hoping that by November it was going to be all about Garrison coming back to try to be a teacher again, and
right, and having to make amends for being such a dick.
Yeah, and coming back to this school that was divided by boys and girls, and he realized he was part of it. And that was really we're like, oh, that's so cool. And then Trump fucked it all up. So
he fucked it all up by winning. Yeah, and that was tough. So the whole season, you can definitely feel it wobble at the whatever the election night was, because we had a complete other story mapped out, and it wasn't just the jokes and the lines and stuff. It was kind of the deep tectonic sort of like things that were informing the attitudes, informing the the jokes. So then it kind of wobbles, and then we had to keep on this story that we had, this troll story that was going, and we had to keep with a certain tone. And so it was tough. It was a tough basically a third act of this whole big season, and 8th, 9th, and 10th episode. They were tough to dial in.
It was always, part of the, really the only fun day on South Park is Thursdays, where we come in and we know we have a short day and we can go home soon, but we sit in the room in the morning and go, all right, let's just forget all that. Now what do we do? And obviously this whole season there was never any forget all that. It was just, okay, where are we? What do we need to get to? And while it was totally interesting, and I think we learned a lot from it, like I said, it was definitely really hard.
Yeah, it was a tough season. Just to keep it was the tone thing that I guess we noticed last. Was,
yeah,
but
I will say too,
episode. Yeah,
what's funny is when we were wrong on and Clinton lost, and we were sitting there on Tuesday night with a show and going, oh fuck, like Trump's gonna win this, like our show's wrong. And people, there's a lot of people going, aha, South Park, you fell on your face, you made this prediction. And it's like, look, we've been through what, 4 elections?
Yeah.
And we've been through 4 elections, and we've had 4 Tuesday nights where we had to call the election before. And we always did it the same way. We looked at the Vegas odds, because Vegas is never wrong. And so, like, the guys that are spending the real money, all you got to do is go to Vegas and see what they're doing. So when we were doing it with Obama, when we were doing it, whatever it was, we always just said, well, what does Vegas say? And if Vegas was saying it's, 6-1, we're like, fuck it, let's do the show. I'll put money on that. And so Vegas was saying, like 8, it started off like 20-1. And then as the week was going, it got a little shorter, but it was still saying like 10-1 and I'm like, well, we can bank on those odds. And Vegas was wrong. Vegas can cheat you once in a while.
Yeah, be aware. Vegas can let you down. And take that as a lesson. It's not all it says it is. Yeah. Yeah. So that's season 20. I guess
it was also interesting. There's obviously a lot as we were going in this, but one fun thing was that my daughter got to be Ike this season.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And
she did some cussing.
Yeah, she did a lot of cussing. And it sort of like slowly, it was first she came in and had one line where she said like, damn it or something. And my wife's just kind of like, okay. And then it was like every week we'd bring her in and it would just get worse and worse. And then it became the joke that Ike, was, and it was supposed to, it was in the idea of the show that Ike's dad, who has become this horrible, provocateur, potty mouth person, was obviously spreading it to his little son, and but it was really funny because one of the first Ikes we had, one of the first Ikes was actually one of our producers, Frank Agnoni's daughter, and she's now in college. So it's like, it's crazy that that now there's it's been that long that basically the Ike is now doing well in college. So it's just pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah,
but it really is what we're and I think again, even with us as we were going to the season, we were kind of getting at what we were saying, which was so much more about how like watching someone justify what they do, being a provocateur, right, and how that relates to us, and that's what we were really trying to get to at the end was, us trying to justify, no, we can say all this horrible shit because we're provocateurs and we're doing it for art, and then slowly watching someone gain momentum and a fan base by being a provocateur as a politician. And that's really what we meant. Lately we've been joking in the press that there's just we're not going to make fun of Trump because you can't do it because it's a provocateur making fun of a provocateur. And it's like, it's supposed to be that provocateurs are the ones, on the fringe and on the side going, yeah, but hey, what about this? And everyone's going, all right, guys, shut up, you're assholes. And now that person is president. So it's just like, it really is more a joke about like, just how hard that is, how hard it is to be a provocateur ripping on a provocateur. And then that's why in the season it was interesting that we had a troll provocateur, the Trump provocateur, and us as provocateurs, and we're trying to talk about all the same idea towards the end.
Yeah, we thought it was important at the beginning of the season. We talked about that, of where we lie on the spectrum of like a being just saying like a racist joke. If Cartman says a racist joke, where does that lie in the spectrum of then like some of these internet celebrities who are just exist to piss people off and almost celebrities? Then they say something, but it's like sort of performance art. It's like, where does South Park's on that spectrum? And then there's Dice Clay, who's like somewhat of a construction, but then, you know what I mean? He kind of became who he became. And then you have somebody like Milo, who's like further out, and Andy Kaufman, and then all of a sudden you have somebody who's actually in a suit and tie, actually on the ballot. And there's a continuum now between those forces. So it was kind of important to us at the end of the season to just say, no, we're professionals. Leave that shit to us. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
God damn it, we're funny, and this is not funny.
Yeah.
But it's sort of we kind of throw up our hands and go, we don't know. It's just there is a difference. So we're kind of begging mercy of everyone to go, there's a difference between doing something within a frame and a context of something that's art,
Well, and it's also like people at some reporters would ask that question of like, you guys provoke and you say, you say provocative things to get a big reaction, and what's the difference between you and Trump? And now we're like, he's the president. Like that's it.
He's looking for
you don't
actual
need to go,
power
yeah,
over
he's
people,
actually trying to change policy. And so it's just pretty funny. And and that's when it sort of got around that it's like, oh, that got twisted into, oh, they're not going to make fun of Trump, like they're going to back off of him. That's fucked up. And it's like, we actually said almost everything we wanted to say about Trump in season 19 in the episode. That
season turned out to be pretty prescient.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know how much further we could go than Trump fucking himself to death and like, raping himself. And it's like, then we thought it was an interesting new way to look at it and talking about that part of it, the provocative part about it of Trump versus a troll versus us, and that's really what the season was about. And it's like, but like I said, there's not a whole lot more to make fun of. I mean, there'll be daily things, obviously, on late night talk shows, but
we'll figure out something. I think we were really glad, just to be honest. Like, we knew that after the election, we were already so tired, and we had to figure out the end of the season, the last 3 episodes, as we said at the very beginning of the recording, that it was like definitely the hardest season physically and just mentally to figure out how to make this stuff funny, and some of the choices we made we had to stick with, and all that was, I don't know, that was really tough. But we were really glad that we could see, even at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad we're off the air for a little bit, because for a few months, and then we'll come back in August and we'll be able to say something, and mostly I was just glad because what we're supposed to do and what we try to do is come up with something that's a little more high level, or kick it upstairs from the daily or even the weekly bullshit, which with Trump is really hard to do. And I could tell that we needed time to be able to think, and like, we don't have anything smart to say. You know what I mean? We were kind of like, okay, we got to go take a break and be able to look at this before we can say something smart. And I admire, and I'm not at all envious of like comedy people who have to be on the air right now. You know what I mean? Processing this in real time, because it's a pretty frothy time. I mean, it would be fun on the way, but for our job, I thought it was like, oh my gosh, we need a break.
No, we needed a break. It just landed we thought it was landing in a perfect time, and it actually landed in a time where everyone's brain was getting fried, and it was like hard to do weekly live art at the time. But and then now we're just looking forward to season 21, as we meant to do from the beginning. It's already hard to be like, dude, where's the world going to be? Like, what's going to be going on? And I don't know. I think I can agree with a lot of fans where I'm just excited to get back to a lot of Osimo and Christmas critters. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's what we'll talk about in season. Hopefully that's what season 21 is about. Yep. And we can check that against the record.
Yeah, it'll be season 21, episode 1, Osimo versus the Christmas critters.
Pooping on each other's dick. Pooping on each other's dicks.
Yeah.
Hey, poop on your dick.
So anyway, thank you for listening to our commentary.
All right.
And
thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.